very good evening to all of you. I'm Juhi Rajput. In today's episode, we're going to discuss impact of Union Budget 2012 on construction and infrastructure sector. To analyze and discuss the same, we've been joined by Mr. Puneet Kumar, Director, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Professor Manoj Pant, Economist, School of International Studies, JNU, Mr. B. Seenaiah, President, National Highways Builders Federation, Mr. Arun Sahai, Chairman, Builders Association of India, Delhi Chapter, Mr. Pradeep Jain, Chairman, CREDAI, Delhi Chapter, Mr. Anand Sundaresan, Managing Director, Schwing, Stetter, India, and Mr. Amit, Gossain, Vice President, Marketing and Business Development, JCB India Limited. Very good evening and welcome. First of all, I'd like to have a quick reaction from all of you about how has this union budget been according to you. Let's start with you, Mr. Sahai.
The funds for the next 5-year plan have been doubled, more than doubled in fact. It is 50 lakh crores now. In the 11th 5-year plan, we had a budget of 20 lakh crores. So there has been an emphasis. The funds which are required has to come from the government as well as from public-private partnership. But when it comes to the construction sector, the construction, core construction and real estate, I don't see much relief has been given to these sectors.
A very small amount, 8,000 crores from borrowing abroad, the Infrastructure Development Fund. Then a large amount, 60,000 crores to be borrowed domestically, and a small window called ECB. Now the ECB is actually not such a great window. The ECB is only available for maintenance. It's not that you can use ECB for whatever purpose you want. So to me, the primary consideration is not the emphasis. It's always a good thing to have emphasis in infrastructure, but where is this money going to come from?
If you look at the budget, there are a lot of positive points, a lot of stops given in various areas, like as you mentioned, like ECB or 60,000 crore of infra debt funding, and also the 8,800 kilometers of road which is going to be built in 12-13. That's again a good decision. And we would like to see some action in implementing the project. Announcement is one thing, but implementation is much more important. That's what should happen. That's what we are all looking at.
Overall budget is good for the infrastructure. Related to the real estate, I think everything is negative, except the affordable housing investment base. They include real estate into that. How that going to be benefit to the real estate, we need to see going forward. Well,
lack of infrastructure is a major concern in India, and there is a grave need to remove infrastructure bottlenecks. While we continue to be one of the fastest growing economies, a pace of development is unlikely to continue unless it is supported by an equally robust development of its infrastructure. Do you feel the Union Budget 2012 will boost the rapid infrastructure development in the country?
The budget is basically good for the infrastructure sector. Having said that, I would confine my remarks only to the highway sector with which I am associated. If you look at the statistics and the numbers, it really shows that there is a very increased and heightened response as far as roads and highways sector in infrastructure is concerned. This year, there have been 25 projects which have been awarded on premium out of 41 projects awarded so far in 2011 and 12, which is a record of the sorts. And these are those projects, some of them were expected to go on even viability grant funding. The response is so good. I fail to understand if there is a concern that bankers are not lending, then how is this kind of aggressive bidding taking place in the reality?
The infrastructure in the east is extremely deficient, and particularly deficient if you go to northeast. Now here, first of all, PP doesn't work. There is no P. Out of the 2 Ps, 1 P is missing in the eastern, so there's no point talking about PPP. So the answer to that is, of course, you'll have viability gap funding, but where will the money come from? Viability gap funding is almost complete requirements in Northeast. So what about the balanced growth part? Because the developing country, roads must come before development. They're not going to happen. So these concerns must be addressed.
In the beginning of the current fiscal 2011-12, NHAI had targeted to award around 79 projects covering around 8,000 kilometers under various phases. In all, 58 national highway projects have been delayed. What are the major reasons for such delays?
Main reason for implementation is concerned because of the restrictions by the Planning Commission. Unless they acquire 80% land, and you should not award the works. That's why it got delayed. It is not going as per the plan.
Government had an ambitious plan to construct 20 kilometers of road per day, which could not be achieved in 11th five-year plan. And now in this budget, government has decided to extend the projects from 7,500 kilometers to 8,800 kilometers. How feasible this target looks to you?
Even the finance minister in his budget speech says the awarded works, number of works awarded, number of kilometers, commitment to do so many kilometers. Even the last year, my friend said 7,000 kilometers commitment, but nobody is talking about the kilometers completed. Actual execution. This, the people. Let me complete, sir. This have been kept in dark, and there are a lot of disputes. The projects in execution for last so many years, they are either struck, they are in disputes, arbitration awards, they are pending, not been award considered. Huge funds are blocked. So those issues have not been addressed because the organization is without a head. So, and nobody is talking about the completed projects. We talk about awarded. The finance minister would say, we have awarded so many kilometers. Let us talk about what has been done in last 5 years.
NHAI on regular basis keep awarding the project to the private parties to execute. But we need to see how many projects actually implemented. If you see the present Land Acquisition Act, RR Bill, approved by the Parliament, pending with Mrs. Mahajan's parliamentary committee, if that bill passed in a way it was passed by the Parliament, the Highway Authority, they are not able to acquire any land. Because they need to pay thrice the market price, they need to give the employment to everyone who own that land. How can be infrastructure project can be implemented? The first and most important thing, the NHAI must be considered to award only the project where they already have the land. Otherwise, they are blocking basically the overall infrastructure money for that unexecuted project.
Is the Northeast, sir, I am telling you, this is 7th year, Northeast projects just are sitting idle, and only because of the land acquisition, utility shifting, what we are doing, what infrastructure we are providing for the public, how the country will grow. If we are not able to, even today, 7 years will it take, sir, to get the land. So, as a promoter, I have invested already for a project of 40 kilometers, 40 crore on equipment, and I am sitting there idle, doing nothing, and I have to pay for my personal. What infrastructure, what the government is looking at?
I won't say that this problem has been absolutely resolved. There are issues, there are areas, and much also depends upon the cooperation of the state government. Since we are in the federal setup, we have to basically, take the state authorities also in confidence. There are various issues, there are coordination issues, but from the ministry side, many of these issues have also been resolved by forming coordination units at the state level, and also the land acquisition has been improved over last 2.5 years, which I have personally seen. As a result, 80%, up to 80% of the land at least is made available to the developer on the date of issue of LOA, with the balance 20% commitment to be completed before the financial close is achieved in case of the highways projects.
We'll continue this discussion, but after this short break. You stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, as we were just discussing, the 12th five-year plan target requires an investment of $1 trillion US. Don't you think it will be a daunting task in such a in the current economic environment, especially considering that at least 50% is expected to come from the private sector?
Panelists say, just for your question, I'd give the same answer, that 50% of funding, whether it's possible or not, and Mr. B. Seenaiah has just talked about funding a little bit, but I think what is the funding that we've got in the past? We've not achieved that 30% level of funding so far. So how is it that we're going to get 50% suddenly? You know, that's the question to raise. The other thing is, we are expecting the economy to grow, and the finance minister said 7.6% plus. So that is what our expectation is. But in the budget, I'm talking from an infrastructure and a construction equipment point of view, we've and in expected lines, we've raised excise duty, we've raised service tax, and we are saying that there's more funding required. Now the customer, our customer, who's actually building infrastructure for the country, for him, he's paying additional money to source these equipment that are building the infrastructure in India. So is it going to actually, these measures, are they going to slow down? They might get extra revenue, but had this excise duty and service tax, if they would have not been there, I think it would have been the other way around, that there would have been more technology, more better equipment out in the market. All the builders would have bought them and built infrastructure faster. In that case, that funding that you're talking about, 50%, that would have then come faster.
The hike in excise and custom duties of 2% will not only have a cumulative effect on the cost of construction on a whole, but may also impact the revenues of Indian companies.
The manufacturing sector in India, for a 7.6% growth, has to grow as well. So all these equipment are made with the best of technology in the world in India itself. So why is it that there is a duty exemption on two of the top equipment that are already manufactured in India in a big way?
Only those equipment which were not manufactured in India were permitted for import under duty free. Now the same thing is extended to the other projects as well, like the national, the state highways and things like that.
It's not very simple to say, okay, we make everything, please remove, add import duties. We've got some commitments of WTO too. It's not that you can keep on raising duties on whatever you want and reducing duties. There are some commitments, some average rate of duty you have to maintain. These commitments are difficult for the government. And we cannot say that we can only develop infrastructure in a closed economy.
When an equipment is imported, they get a complete exemption on import duty. Okay. So they don't pay their basic duty, they don't pay the CVD, they don't pay the SAD.
That's the set off. That's set off.
The set off. It's a complete set off. It's a free import duty, 0% import duty. The Indian manufacturers don't get excise duty exemption or import duty exemption on those components which get into manufacture of these products, number one. Okay. That means our imports are completely dutiable. Number two, when we supply these equipments to the construction companies, they they also have to charge them excise duty and sales tax. So it is not a level playing field. You see, that's what I'm saying.
The imports are duty free does not mean I now want duty. The answer is, let the government set us in various ways. For example, duty drawback is given to exporters of various things. There are other ways of setting off. The answer is not to impose import duties. See, in the World Organization, that is not an answer. Sorry, we have to pay excise, therefore we are not competitive. That's your problem. You've got to work it out with the government.
There is already a lot of investment by a lot of manufacturers like JCB, us and Schwing, Stetter and many other companies who actually invested in India in a big way to produce this equipment. They've brought in technology. I think one of the ways could have been that there should have been some kind of an incentive for people to develop R&D here in India to build that equipment, which would benefit the local people and all Indians here. Now, the equipment which are not in India, welcome to have duty exemption on them. But the equipment which is already manufactured in a big way in India, there is no logic, no reason to give such a large duty exemption on them. So that is the point that we are actually talking about.
Government should protect indigenous manufacturers for sure. There should be a level playing field at least. That I'm sure everyone would agree with. Right, agree. Mr. Kumar, since resource constraints continue to limit public investment in infrastructure, PPP module has been strongly emphasized. Do you think the budget has done enough to mitigate the financing needs of the private sector investment in infrastructure?
There is no denying that there is a huge infrastructure deficit in various infra sectors, and there has been a lot of work done for stabilizing the public-private partnership philosophy, I would say. it has really taken time for PPP to mature, and which is why during the 11th plan, the contribution of the private sector has gone up to close to 30%. Now the fact is that in the 12th 5-year plan, it is projected that 50% of the $1 trillion investment is expected to come from the private sector. There has been an announcement relating to the infrastructure debt funds, and the one such infra debt fund has been created also last year, last month only, and there are many more to follow. The reason most of the infra companies were complaining that there is absolutely big problem for the long-term debt, and which is why this infra debt fund has been created to address the long-term concern of the infrastructure players.
I think they are doing a lot, but I don't find the financing. In fact, as you mentioned, I did mention in the beginning, the infrastructure debt relief debt fund, which is the overseas borrowing, but that's only 8,000 crores. I'm saying in terms of the magnitude of the problem that we are facing, we are relying so much on local borrowing that where is the market going to take this local borrowing when the fact remains that ONGC was not able to offload even 13,000 crores. So that's what worries me in the recession. Where will they get the money from in terms of borrowing?
No, I'll just make 2 points. One, this infrastructure debt fund, it's not 8,000 crores. It is with an initial size of 8,000 crores launched earlier this month.
Correct.
Okay. Correct. Secondly, tax-free bonds of 60,000 crores to be allowed for financing infrastructure projects in 2012-13, which was 30,000 crores during 11-12. So now these things have been done, and this is the first time that such kind of things have been done, because developers and everybody was raising this kind of concern that there is a problem of the asset liability mismatch with the banks, and there is no long-term debt fund available. And how do we finance these infrastructure projects which have these concession periods going beyond 20 years, 25 years? If there is no long-term debt available, where do they go for accessing the funds? And this is a good beginning.
It's time to take another short break here. You stay tuned.
आज फिर मशीन बंद हो गई।
मशीन तो ठीक है, बिजली धोखा दे गई, केबल ही घटिया है।
मानो या न मानो, आज भी कई औद्योगिक क्षेत्रों में बिजली की कमी के कारण हजारों लोगों को खाली हाथ घर लौटना पड़ता है। तो क्यों न एक ऐसा पावर केबल चुने जो बिजली बचाए, बिजली का घाटा रोके और शॉर्ट सर्किट का जोखिम घटाए। चुने रवीन केबल्स। प्राइम कैब, रवीन केबल्स उत्पादन।
When you are determined to be a winner, your desire to conquer is fueled by the power of your instinct. With eyes set on the target, you create your own path. Your determination inspires you to never give in. Then emerges a creator of a winning journey, blazing a trail for others to follow. We are Jindal Paul Limited.
Welcome back. In today's episode, we're discussing impact of Union Budget 2012 on construction and infrastructure sector. Mr. Sahai, a hike in excise duty and service tax would adversely affect the growth prospects of the industry and result in higher cost to the consumer, in turn leading to inflation. What are your views about it?
We talk about, we've been seeing that there has been a dip in the industrial growth. The industrial growth has come down, and it is on negative. We have to accelerate that for the GDP to grow. And on the other front, on the other hand, we are increasing the excise duty, we are increasing the service tax. So what are we looking at? By increasing the excise duty, it is not serving the purpose of the government. We have seen in the past, whenever they have decreased the excise duty, they have been able to generate more revenue with the growth. When we talk about construction industry, there has been more volatility. If we see the last 3 years or maybe 4 years, steel prices, they're not stable. In last 4 months, the prices have gone up from 40 rupees a kg to more than 50 rupees. I'm talking about long products, which is 100% consumed in the construction industry. So now you're trying to, all these factors are going to be inflationary measures as far as the construction industry is concerned. Prices of cement has gone up, and steel and other materials.
See, the cost escalation, generally we consider 5% of the seat in 2.5 years, 3 years, like that. But whereas here, if you see the last 3 years back, the projects which were taken, today there is 100%, 60 to 70% increase in the prices. See, where diesel was say 30 rupees, today it is 45 rupees, bitumen is say 30,000, today it is 45,000. How anybody consider? See, just we are looking at this 2% increase in the excise duty. See, every month they keep on increasing the bitumen, diesel, all these things are not being considered. And which funder will come forward to fund for the project? Where is the guarantee where it is going to get ended by at a particular cost?
Mr. Gossain, let's quickly take your views. The budget 2012-13 has addressed the expectation of this industry.
Micro level, there are things which are missing that are actually going to take the infrastructure forward in a faster way. Now, NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation that's been formed, is a very good initiative because it's going to produce, you said 6 crore people, I don't know what numbers, but if that's the...
No, this is the number announced in the budget speech.
If that is the number, 6 crores that are going to be produced, then we need to actually get mechanization in a big way to get all the projects that we are talking about move very fast and actually achieve all the infrastructure dreams that the country has. Now, from that perspective, that is why we say that, you know, when you increase the taxes to the consumer, already industrial production is down, you need to actually take it up. So I think that had to be maintained, and also to mechanize, you need to give some fillip to the sector which produces the mechanization.
Mr. Anand, what would you like to say?
When we hear the number of $1 trillion, it's really fantastic, and we all say that, okay, whatever investment we have made, we are going to utilize that, and we will have a complete capacity utilization of whatever we did. Because in 2007, 2008, we did, because the whole thing was booming, we invested a lot, we have created capacities which we were not able to use it. In 2009 and 2010, we were happy. 2011 onwards is going down. So that's where we are concerned, that how soon we are only looking at implementation of the project from the government side, speedy implementation of the project and speedy execution of the project, so that, you know, the infrastructure also develops, and although we are also happy with utilizing our capacity.
Lastly, I'd like to ask all the panelists, how has been the budget and what else could have been there to make things better? Mr. Sahai.
In this finance bill, they have come out with a notification, and which is very rare, which says from retrospective. No, this is for road repairs maintenance. So the projects even executed before 2009, from 2005, when the time when it had come into applicable, so they have been exempted. So this is a big relief to people and to a lot of issues which have arisen. The construction industry at times were not, being a service provider, were not able to recover the service tax from the service recipient. So here this is one good step which has come. Then the negative list and the identification of projects which are exempted. So this would all help in the confusion which we are going through for last couple of years.
Let's see what Mr. Jain wants to say.
Finance Minister make availability of the funds in large way with the infrastructure. My humble submission to the infrastructure policy maker to utilize that money in a right way, to implement and deliver to the nation. That's it.
Mr. Gossain.
The manufacturing sector here needs a lot of research, R&D, getting the technology here to build infrastructure faster. Now you have this focused product group, why not add infrastructure building equipment, R&D in the focused product group, which will actually going to give another fillip to the industry here to produce things that are used, that are Indian specific.
Mr. Anand, what would you like to say?
You know, the import of second-hand equipments, which should be channelized in a proper way. For example, you say that an excavator produced in India, the engine should have that pollution control norms. But if the second-hand imports are not channelized in a proper way, you will have equipments which are old equipments which are coming into India with older engines which doesn't meet these pollution norms and all. So we are not saying that stop it, but we are saying that you channelize it in a proper way so that there is a complete control on the safe equipment getting into the country. This is the second thing. Of course, we had a lot of hope about the GST coming into place, because there are this differential taxation in different parts of the state is really creating a lot of problem for the equipment manufacturers.
Let's take Mr. Seenaiah's views.
There are about say 20-30 developers in highway sector is concerned. They have been some projects have been already completed. See if they are able to go and raise funds by bonds, so that will be helpful for raising the funds for the future projects. That one thing is need to be seen, and other is the consolidation of SPVs. If all SPVs are put to seen as one entity, and if there is plus or minus, that can be get adjusted. So that is what these two are more important for the infrastructure projects are concerned.
Mr. Kumar can probably answer this.
Government is really focused and committed to abridge the infrastructure deficit which has existed for long, because this alone could trigger the economy at a much faster growth rate. Government has to take a complete holistic view. I mean, it cannot take a very sector specific. There could be issues, and I think they can be addressed only in the successive budgets when the situation becomes better. This particular budget, the kind of concessions which had existed earlier and the impetus which is required for the long-term debt funds, the tax-free bonds, I mean, after all these things are going to make the money which is required. So government is basically trying to catalyze the process of development in the infrastructure, and most of the things in the budget basically are directed with the very clear focus to take the development of this infrastructure sector forward.
All I would like to say is that we saw a lot of agreements, lot of disagreements. We also saw a lot of emotions flowing. But all in all, we can say that this budget has been quite positive for the infrastructure as a whole. Few expectations have been met, few have not been met. But as Mr. Kumar said, that those expectations or those concerns can always be addressed next time. I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining us. Thank you so much.